Story 1. I had a guy who would come in once every 2 weeks or so. He would buy around 10 to 20 movies and not much else. At least one of the movies would always be a 1 from our gay section, which always prompted him to explain he was from a state where you couldn't buy porn legally, so he would buy it for multiple friends, one of which happened to be gay. I didn't really care and always just said something like, "That's nice." The best sale I ever had was a man who bought a few movies, a couple fleshlights, and a life-sized fake ass. His ticket came to about $1,300. It was right at the end of the night I helped him carry it to his car. Yes, the ass was that big, included thighs and part of torso. He left and I closed up for the night. The next day, my manager asked about the sale and I told him the story. He informed me the man called and said he bought a couple movies, and that was it, and demanded the rest of the charges be removed from his card. He said it was probably a bad case of buyer's remorse. I still got my commission and never heard about it again. Story 2. I had a husband come in looking for a vibrator with an extra long handle. He kept insisting longer, longer, longer whenever I showed him a model, so I finally asked why the necessity of length. He told me his wife had really let herself go and he needed a long handle so he wouldn't have to get too close to her. Story 3. We had a woman in her 60s to 70s that came in and bought an excessive amount of DVDs. They were all different kinds too. Hetero, homo, fetish, everything. I was so caught off guard I started talking to her about free porn sites, but she said her son prefers DVDs. I must have given her an odd look, so she elaborated and said her son was mentally challenged and had been sexually inappropriate behaviors in the past, so she bought him the movies and no more incidents. I didn't believe her until she came back in a week later with her son. I spent the next 2 years seeing them every 2 weeks or so. She started coming in and handing me cash and would go sit in the car while he made his selections. He was non-verbal and I'd have to help him pick out the movies and filter for anything that looked particularly aggressive per her request to me. I eventually started keeping DVDs to the side for him and would give him the free promotional DVDs and sample lubes we'd get. Story 4. My first wife used to sell sex toys. She'd go to conventions with other sex toy sellers and distributors. One of the sellers had a market surrounded by 3 colleges, one of them Ivy League. She said that she had so many college-age women who didn't know how anything worked down there that she started carrying pamphlets for Planned Parenthood. So this is your body, 12 facts about your cycle, and other honest-to-goodness educational materials. Women would ask her medical questions and she'd have to explain what a gynecologist was for. "Honey, I just sell glowing condoms and dongs shaped like tentacled dinosaurs. You need to ask a real medical professional these questions." Story 5. I used to work at an adult novelty store. We sold all sorts of things from SFW stuff like jewelry and masks to NSFW stuff like 2-foot-long double-sided dongs. Most folks didn't find the need to make an excuse for what they were buying. There were 3 types of customers. We would have the regulars, usually men in their 60s or older, who would come in for a few DVDs and some enhancement pills. They don't talk much, in and out. We would get the college kids in for a laugh. They'd wander around the store for an hour touching everything and usually leave without buying anything. If they did buy, it was always a gag gift. Then there were the professionals, either performing drag queens, strippers, or professional dominatrixes. They were my favorites. They were kind, polite, and always knew exactly what they wanted. Story 6. Not a worker, but a customer. I wandered into one and asked for the most embarrassing, inappropriate gag gift to give to a guy at his bachelor's party. Many years ago, somebody told me that you could buy an inflatable sheep at those stores, so I was hoping to find something like that in there. Or maybe a horse rear you could screw, or the world's smallest penis pump. The cashier looked at me very strangely, suspiciously, and said they didn't sell anything like that. I don't think she believed it was a gag gift. Story 7. One day my girlfriend and I were horny, and our fingers could only do so much. Since I had recently moved to a new state, I wasn't quite as familiar with the area, and I didn't know by memory where the nearest adult store would be located. We relied on my Maps app to take us to our destination. However, it didn't take us to a place where we could buy as many dildos as we could ever want. It instead told me to go into a freaking military base. I ended up pulling up to the gate area where some guys in camo asked us if we had a visitor's pass. I was honest with him and told him, "I have no idea where I am, I'm just following my Maps program and it told me to come here." The young man then asked me where I was going. I tried to respond with a vague answer, but he kept persisting. I'm a bit too awkward to tell this dude where two young lesbians were trying to go. Eventually, he asked, "Are you looking for the arts and crafts place nearby?" We said yes, and that answer was good enough for him. We turned around and found the right place, which was closed anyways. Story 8. A town I lived in years ago had a porn store. It was always funny to go in there to buy porn, back in the pre-internet days of VHS, and see others that you knew. You would always start doing this little dance with them, and they you. You would pretend you were in there for one of the novelty gifts for a supposed birthday. They would do the same. They would be waiting for you to leave, and you them. This would go on for half an hour before one of you just gave up and left. Given how comfortable pretty much everybody is with porn these days, it's funny to look back when it was a bit shameful. Story 9. Friend and I went to the local erotic goods store to get tons of condoms and individual lube pods to help fill an adult piñata. I was pretty shy and vanilla, so it was already a struggle for me to just be in there and not blush. While shopping, I mentioned to my buddy a new bong that I was planning to buy. Friend asked me how big, and I put my hands up and said, "Oh, like 14 inches or so." Right then, a large bearded man who worked there approached and asked, "Oh, hey cutie, you looking to get a new toy? I can definitely help you find something that size." I turned beet red instantly and started stammering, finally explaining that I was talking about something else. I don't think he believed me, because he tipped my friend a wink and said, "Okay, sweetie, you know where we are if you change your mind." Story 10. I work in a sex store. I have for 6-ish years now. This just happened maybe 3 to 5 months ago. A middle-aged woman, blonde, very attractive, huge breasts, asked me to help her try on some lingerie. Not that out of the ordinary. Sometimes corsets are hard to get on. Lots of lace work on some of them. But no, it was just a nightie type thing, sheer black, and she just wanted to make sure it would fit her chest because of her aforementioned large breasts. We're not in the dressing room, we're at the counter. She lifts her top, bra included, and asked me to get her tits into the bust of the nightie. I obliged. She bought it and left me a $1 tip and said something to the affect of overworked, underappreciated, and left. I have many stories, but this is the most recent and most awesome that was completely out of nowhere. Story 11. I think I may have actually embarrassed the clerk last time I went down to Ye Olde Romantics. I needed a new vibrator because mine had died like 6 months ago. I was deliberating trying something different for like 10 minutes before I said F it and got the same model I liked. I got up to the register and she checked it all out and offered to me to test it myself. "Oh no, I'm good. I've owned this model before," I said as she put her own hand against the surface and immediately had an "oh shit" expression. The low setting is the only one I use, but some people used to really weak vibrations are probably shocked by it. She asked if anything else had piqued my interest. I said, "Kinda. I think I'm just kinda happy with this one though. My old one lasted 2 years before the motor burned out." She was clearly holding in giggles and definitely laughed as she offered me my receipt and was red in the cheeks. Like, "Miss Lady, why are you working in a sex shop if comments of that caliber are enough to make you snort?" Story 12. I made a clerk spit her coffee years ago. I was in the shop and already a little uncomfortable enough as being a female alone in an adult store sometimes attracts the wrong attention, as it did this day. A man saw me looking at various items and decided to sidle up to me. Each display I looked at, he moved to join me, creeping closer and closer, until our coats were touching and I could feel his breath on my neck. Exasperated, I started moving to a display at the front of the store, hoping the female clerk would notice my creeper, who by then was playing pocket pool, and tell him to get lost. No such luck. Finally, maxed out on the skeeve meter, I walked over to the strap-ons. This really got his attention, judging by the increased effort he put into getting the old 9-ball in the side pocket. So I picked up the largest dong they have. It was pretty much the size of my arm, at least 12 to 13 inches long, and as big around, ending with a closed fist. With my best, I'm young, dumb, and female, perky voice, I whirled around to him and said, "Excuse me, can I ask your opinion on something?" Creeper perked up. I'm sure he thought he was not only going to pick me up, but my imaginary GF as well. "Sure. My little man Bith says he can't feel it when I F him. Would you say this is big enough?" I didn't get to finish. Creeper left a dust train behind him in his hasty exit, and the clerk spat her coffee all over the counter at which she worked and started howling. Story 13. Early 2000s. I worked in a small local bookstore, not an adult store. An older man comes up to the counter and mumbles, "That's he's looking for Christian something." I couldn't make out his words but told him where the religion section was. 2 minutes later, he's back to at the counter. "Dude, I'm looking for the Christian corn." Before I could even think to tell him that we don't sell adult material, I blurt out, "What exactly is that? Like regular corn but they're married or something?" "Dude, it's corn, but Christian." Me, "I don't think such a thing exists." "Dude, yes it does. I read about it." "Okay, Drudge Report, I bet you're hiding it behind the counter." And he starts to try to come behind the counter to see for himself. Me, "Sir, you can't come back here. I'm not hiding secret Christian corn back here." Dude, flustered, Yeah, okay, good. This was just a test. Corn is a sin anyways," as he makes for the exit.